You are listening to the Mark Guzman Podcast Experience. It is known for being the epicenter of progressive and liberal politics, but lesser known is a culture making it one of America's most colorful and diverse cities, Berkeley, California. Tom Dalzell is a blogger and contributor to Berkeleyside.com and recently launched his book, Quirky Berkeley, based on his own website, quirkyberkeley.com. We discuss the culture, history, and the people of Berkeley and his amazing discoveries such as the Fish House, the giant ceramic family, Berkeley castles, and murals. This episode will have you wanting to follow his do-it-yourself walking paths through Berkeley, and for $15, you can purchase his book as a perfect tour guide. Okay, so we are live here. And so my guest today is a contributor to Berkeleyside, the publication that focuses on Berkeley-centric matters. In August, he released his newest book, Quirky Berkeley, based off of the column he wrote for Berkeleyside. The book focuses on the unique quirks of one of America's most colorful and diverse cities, Berkeley. Welcome to the podcast, Tom Dalzell.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. And so let's get started. And how long have you lived in Berkeley?
I moved into Berkeley in 1984, so 33 years.
Okay. What made you move to Berkeley?
I had spent the 1970s working for Cesar Chavez in the Farm Workers Union, living in rural California between the Imperial Valley and Delano, so 300 miles of rural California. And I got a job with a labor union in Walnut Creek and lived in Oakland for a few years. And Berkeley's a pretty big draw. I mean, there's so much happening there.
Yeah.
Moved there.
Okay. And then most importantly, what kept you there?
The waters. That's a line from Casablanca. I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. I was misinformed. Yeah, there's no waters in Casablanca. I was misinformed. Well, the diversity, the cultural diversity. It was more of a multicultural city in 1984 than it is now. The ideas, the creativity, the ability to be an individual there. And I find the political spectrum there comfortable. I mean, the far left there is probably too far left for me, but I'd rather have that than
far right.
Than a far right. Yeah, and that's just personal. I'm comfortable with the politics there.
Yeah. And then you're right now a contributor for Berkeleyside.
Yeah, I write a blog that's quirkyberkeley.com, and most of my own posts I condense for Berkeleyside. And so I have a shorter, less idiosyncratic post on Berkeleyside, but a much bigger audience.
Yeah. So, how long have you been contributing to them?
I started my blog, quirkyberkeley.com, in 2013, and I believe in 2014 they started running some condensed versions.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so they're pretty recent then.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then I have your website open here, quirkyberkeley.com. And
yes.
You have a new book that you just released. When did this book come out?
Well, the book came out in August of 16, so it's been out for just over a year, and from Heyday Publishers, a Berkeley nonprofit publisher, and we're in the process of doing a second volume that may or may not be called Volume 2. They want to call it Volume 3 just to keep people guessing about what happened to Volume 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been out a year.
Okay. Okay, and then this book focuses really, or it's based mainly on your blog.
Yes,
right?
It is. Yeah, I mean, what I did for the book was I took 10 or 12 of the biggest quirky things, the standalone quirky things, and then in between them, I wrote about them. I showed some photographs. I talked about the people behind them. And in between, I did aggregations or conglomerations of the 25 quirkiest mailboxes that I saw. I put them in between, or things like that, or the 15 quirkiest garden gnomes I saw.
Yeah.
So it goes big thing, congregation, or conglomeration, big thing.
How much time do you spend a day doing all this for your blog?
Not all that much. I mean, I am an early riser. I have a full time job. I'm a leader of a labor union. I'm an early riser, and I don't watch television. I don't really follow professional sports. I don't play golf. So there's a lot of time left over if you don't do those things. And I probably spend an hour a day and a little bit more than that on weekends when I'll go out and see things and go out with a photographer and take pictures for the blog.
Okay. And why focus on the quirkiness of Berkeley? What really attracted you to that?
Well, um, first, let me say that quirky is not my favorite word. However, it almost rhymes with Berkeley, so I couldn't resist that. I
Okay.
mean, there is the stereotype of the People's Republic of Berkeley and tie dye and all that, and it's sort of a stale and out of date stereotype, and so I'm a little wary of quirky. But it's just Berkeley. We have art and quirky things in our front yards and our porches and our along the sidewalk that you just don't find in most other towns. It's one of the ways that we manifest our creativity and individualism is through these outward and physical manifestations of an inward quirkiness or creativity, and uh, I love it.
Yeah.
It's just different. It's something different about Berkeley.
Yeah. Now, your book is a little bit bigger than a pocket-sized book, so it's great to easily carry around.
Yes, and it would be greater if I had a map in it, and I think we'll have a map in the second one. But yes,
Oh, that's
yeah,
a great idea.
yeah. Or the best idea would be an app on the phone, but that's a lot of work.
So,
But
as
yeah,
people are going through the book and they're looking at the pictures, does it give a location of
yes,
where
it
they can
does.
find
Yeah,
it?
yeah. And I have yet to figure out how to predict whether a neighborhood or a block is going to be quirky. There's something to do with demographics, but too rich, you probably don't get much quirk, and too poor, you probably don't get much quirk. But that said, some of the quirkiest things I found up in the hills where you wouldn't predict that people would do it, and in the poorer neighborhoods, along with the working class people, you'll find artists buying houses, and then you'll find quirk there. But there's quirk all over,
Yeah.
and this all came from a project of walking every block of every street in Berkeley uh, with a smartphone, taking pictures and documenting what I see. And originally, I was just using those iPhone photos on the blog, but then a professional photographer has joined me, and we go out once a month for sort of a shooting list to get really good photos that I'm now using on the blog.
Yeah. Is that who I saw a picture on the blog or actually on Berkeley side, and it showed you and two other
Yes,
individuals.
yeah. John Story is the photographer, and Tracy Wee, HUI, is an artist, and she did sketches of the people behind the major quirk. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's the three of us,
Okay.
the three musketeers.
So, what is it that defines quirky?
Well, the short answer to that is whatever I say is quirky is quirky. Um, it's just something that you would not expect. I mean, it could be something as simple as a collection of bowling balls used as lawn art, or it could be sculpture. It could be religious iconography. You got to be careful with religion. Um, it could be garden gnomes. It can be architecture, just something that's completely unexpected and with a little bit of whimsy in it. And I think whimsical Berkeley would probably be the best title, but it doesn't rhyme.
Doesn't rhyme, yeah.
Right, right. So I got to go find a city that rhymes with whimsical and move there.
um, so what are some of the most interesting things or your favorite items that you found walking and discovering in Berkeley?
Well, my absolute favorite is on Spruce Street up in the hills, and it's a giant orange. And those who are listening who are in their 50s or 60s will remember driving along Highway 99 or Highway 5 or even Highway 80.
You want to talk a little bit
Yeah,
more into the mic?
in the old days when along the along the highways were one-off orange juice stands, often with vernacular architecture in the shape of an orange, and you'd pull over and have some orange juice over shaved ice and before AC in the cars and enjoy it. And Bruce Dodd is a retired architect who lives on Spruce Street in Berkeley. And as he and his wife drove back and forth from Berkeley to Yosemite years ago, they saw these lovely giant oranges disappearing and set out to buy one. And yeah, he bought one the night before he was going to truck it up here. Somebody torched it, it burned. He found another one in Chowchilla and trucked it up here and completely rehabbed it. So if you look down a driveway, beautiful oak trees, see the bay, beautiful brown shingle house. You see a giant orange just sitting there on a platform, and it was. Uh, there's a term, "old weird America," that Greil Marcus, a Berkeley writer, coined, and that giant orange is old weird America that's torn out of the Central Valley and brought to Berkeley and just sitting there. And that's where we had the book launch party there. But that's my single favorite. But there are many. Right across the street from Bruce Dodd's on Spruce Street is a woman named Buldan Sika, who's Macedonian, came to the United States in the 1960s and um, studied ceramics at the California College of Arts and Crafts and makes these 8, 9 foot ceramic freaks, and there's a bunch of them in her yard.
Ceramic freaks.
Yeah, yeah. If you look in the book, um, well, I call them giant freaks. Um, they're birds with the bodies of people, and so I'm showing you the book there. You can tell the page number. You describe it. I call them giant freaks. You call them what you.
Wow, these are
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, they are. And Buldan Sika is well over 4 feet, and she's a tiny woman. And these are 8 foot sculptures.
Check this out. And I
Yeah,
have to get
yeah.
pictures of that and put it on the podcast
Oh yeah,
so people
yeah,
can get
yeah.
the visual.
You can pull anything you want off of my blog, and if you just look for Bulldog Seek on there, you'll find it.
Okay. So how does the book differ from the blog?
Um, the blog's generally longer. It's all original writing for the book, where I was trying to be more succinct and capture everything in fewer words. The book is probably a little bit less idiosyncratic, um, and I have 500 posts on the blog, and the book represents 12 or 15 major posts, and maybe 100 or 150 with the mailboxes and things like that. So um, it's uh, you can hold it in your hand. You can't hold the blog in your hand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, is this also available as an ebook for the iPad or?
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't remember.
Okay. And then how much is the book and where can they buy it?
It's in most bookstores in Berkeley. It's on the online sellers, and it's $15.
Okay.
That was one of the decisions, was to for a smaller size format. I would have loved a huge coffee table book with huge photos, but
Well, you know what you can do is have volume 1, volume 2, and 3, and then create a big collector set, and
there
have
you
that
go.
one as a
Right,
coffee
the
table.
coffee table version.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Thank you. From your ears, from your lips to the ears of Steve Wasserman heyday.
So let's talk about your launch party.
Yes.
When was this?
It was in August of 2016. There were 2 parties. One was at the North Branch of the Berkeley Library, open to the public. A couple hundred people came to that. It was wonderful. And then there was a launch party at the Giant Orange on Spruce Street on August 5th. And there I invited the artists and the people whose stuff I show. Some of the people are artists who have their sculpture on the street, like Buldan Sika. There's a woman named Eni Green who lives on Harper Street near Ashby Bart, and she collects all things Dachshund. And so her front yard has sculptures by Mark Bullwinkle, by Patrick Amio, big dachshunds. She has a doggy diner head. So she's presenting a collection. There's sculptors who present their stuff. Uh, so I invited everybody who's in the book to that launch party, as well as some people from the Berkeley Historical Society and Berkeley Architectural Heritage Association. And so that was a smaller party on a lovely windy afternoon up at the Giant Orange at Bruce Dodd's house.
Yeah. So the first launch party, you had a couple hundred.
Yeah, that was much bigger, open to the public, long line out the door when it opened. The doors opened at 7. And gave a little bit of a speech there, but it was more just celebration, seeing people.
Yeah. Do any book signings there?
I signed books as people bought them. Yes, I've done several others. I've spoken to the Berkeley Path Wanderers, the Berkeley Breakfast Club, and sold books there and signed. And the Berkeley Architectural Heritage Association signed books there.
Yeah. Do you know approximately how many books you've sold since?
I don't.
No.
I really don't.
Yeah. Now, do you
thousands?
Yeah.
Not tens of thousands, but thousands.
Great. Do you expect this book to help change people's view on Berkeley?
Well, nobody's asked me that before, and so this is one of my hopes, is that as Berkeley changes, that there is a recognition and appreciation of what Berkeley has been, and that it gets translated into a new generation in Berkeley rather than completely forgotten. I don't know if you went and asked the freshmen at Cal, asked them to tell you about the free speech movement or People's Park, that they could tell you very much. Berkeley is changing, and as well as celebrating what we are and have been. I hope a little bit that wears off, and we stay quirky. I have thought of making a bumper sticker, actually probably will, that says "Keep Berkeley Quirky," which is harder to say than Quirky Berkeley. Keep Berkeley quirky. So yes, there is a hope there. I recognize that change happens, but I hope that we can bring forward a little bit of what we've been.
Yeah. How have you seen Berkeley change over the years?
Well, the university has changed. The demographics of the university have changed. I would say the two things that in my mind have the greatest impact on Berkeley. One is the cost of housing, with a median home price of over $1 million. The young and struggling who could come here in 1965 and buy a house and be creative here. That's really difficult now. Patti Smith said that the young and struggling can no longer afford New York, which is probably true, or San Francisco, or Berkeley. So the median home price, which is just a force of economics, is one thing that's changing. And another thing that is changing is a real pro-developer attitude, and so very large housing projects along transit corridors, along Shattuck and Telegraph University in San Pablo. And it's kind of surprising because historically Berkeley was progressive, and progressives were very wary of development and developers. And there is a group that's generally not from Berkeley, but very present in Berkeley, that supports development at any cost. Under the flag of we need affordable housing, building apartments like the Stonefire that just opened at Milvia and University, where a 2-bedroom apartment is $6,000 a month. That's not affordable housing. So in some ways, there are parts of Berkeley that are starting to look like Walnut Creek or Irvine, and I don't particularly care for that. But so I'd say those are the two bigger changes. Is the character of Berkeley is being eroded by the very large, aggressive development that's going on, and the median home price. And I don't think there's much we can do about the median home price, but um, there are people who are looking for a more balanced approach on development. Berkeley used to. We got our character because we were a combination of the university, the hills, and the flats, working class, multicultural flats, generally white hills, and then a mixture in the university of professors and students. And that was the mixture. And as the home prices go up, we lose a third of that. We lose the working class, the flats. The flats are now little flat top homes are going for $1 million. So we're losing what we made, and you can't stop it. You can't turn it around, but
Yeah, it's amazing the reputation Berkeley's built, not just locally but worldwide. I was earlier this year. I was in Portugal and I was talking with a retired professor, but he grew up in Berkeley during his teenage years,
yes,
right during the civil rights movement,
yes,
and those he stated were his most memorable years. Just to see
yes.
how amazing, like just how everything happened, and he still talks about it to this day.
Between 1960 and 1970, Berkeley was probably if not the epicenter, one of the big epicenters of social change in the United States, starting with the HUAC riots in San Francisco in 1960, the free speech movement, then the Vietnam Day Committee. Some of the earliest protests against the Vietnam War were Berkeley and Oakland, and then People's Park. And Berkeley was always a little bit more political than San Francisco. San Francisco, the Haight-Ashbury was a very cultural scene, and some of that spilled over to Berkeley, but there was politics there. And in many ways, those 10 years gave Berkeley a brand, and it has been rendered a cliche with the tie-dye and People's Republic. And actually, right now, the right wing in the United States is really exploiting for their own publicity purposes. Coming to speak at Berkeley to see what kind of havoc happens
Yeah.
in
So,
Berkeley.
so what do you think of the recent cancellation of the speeches with uh, Milo Yiannopoulos and Coulter?
Well, first of all, I think that they are coming here as publicity stunts. I mean, they have no real interest in. I don't think that they have any. This is my politics. They have no interest in free speech. I don't see them out there supporting Colin Kaepernick for taking a knee and attacking NFL owners for not signing Colin Kaepernick. And they don't really have an audience in Berkeley. There's a small Republican club, but they come here as a publicity stunt, and generally speaking, the problems I think that have happened on those demonstrations have not been from the left or from Berkeley. I mean, I don't consider anarchists to be left wing or right wing. I think it's sort of a different spoke on the wheel completely, and that's where the problems have come from. Is generally not from Berkeley anarchists, and generally, the right wingers and the Trump supporters who come in to Rumble are not from Berkeley either. But it's sort of here's let's go to the Roman Colosseum and besmirch the reputation of a progressive city, Berkeley. So I don't care for it. During the free speech movement, I think that it was George Lincoln Rockwell, who was the head of the American Nazi Party, came to speak on Berkeley campus during the free speech movement. And what the supporters of the free speech movement went is they went to the speech, filled the seats, and sat in absolute silence. And I think that was a pretty stunning refutation of refuting of of hate. And I think that what the people of Berkeley did last Sunday with the Groucho Marx
Yep.
stuff, and using humor, was really effective. And the problems did not come from people from Berkeley or from people from the left. They came from um, anarchists from away.
Yeah. Yeah. So yesterday on the radio, San Francisco Mayor Ed Lee, he was being interviewed, and they had callers calling in, and it was surprising to hear a lot of the negative feedback he's also received from all the recent politics going on, because they're accusing him of basically anti First Amendment, blocking First Amendment free speech. And he said something that I think a lot of people are also overlooking quickly on this, is that when you have certain groups and it's a political stunt and there's a lot of emotions involved and people willing to fight, now you have to worry about the citizens' safety. And then that's basically what he broke it down to is, hey, I need to worry about my citizens, their safety, safety of police, property damage, all that. And
Right.
that's the reason for my decisions.
Right. And Mayor Arguin of Berkeley has asked the university to cancel the culture speech, not on the grounds of don't agree with what she says, on the grounds of the huge strain on city resources. Um, and I mean, I think that it's really a shameless attempt to exploit Berkeley and to besmirch the left, and to try to do what Trump did and make a moral equivalent between the extremists on the right and the extremists on the left. I mean, there is no alt left. Anarchists are not left wing, not right wing either. They're just a whole separate thing, and that's where the problems are coming from. And
It seems a lot of the labeling,
yeah,
groups are just labeled left and right automatically.
right.
And that really just started maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, maybe longer, but yeah, it's a relatively recent thing. And actually, the way American politics line up left and right doesn't really make sense, because on the issue of same-sex marriage, you would think that a conservative would say the government has no right to tell me who I love or who I marry.
Yeah.
That would be the true conservative position. Yet, you generally find conservatives against same-sex marriage, and that just doesn't make sense. Although it was conservative lawyers who litigated it up to the Supreme Court, but yeah, the polarization has really accelerated the left-right, and that's why I like to see all those Groucho Marx glasses and mustaches and noses.
Yeah.
We are Marxists. We are Groucho Marxists.
So it must be very frustrating, though, as a Berkeley resident, to see all these different groups really come to Berkeley, use it as basically just media attention.
Right.
But do you also get like a proud feeling that Berkeley is such an important, like the mecca for liberalism?
Yes, I'm proud of our liberal and progressive trends. We are less progressive and less liberal than we were in the 1970s or the 1980s, when BCA was a very strong political organization within the city, very progressive, but still, compared to most of the United States, it's very liberal and very progressive, and I'm proud of that. I'm puzzled by the embrace of some progressives of developers, but I'm proud of our heritage and sticking with it.
Yeah. Now, this is interesting fact. Sam's grandfather taught at Cal, and I guess he was in Texas once and told someone at the airport that he was from Berkeley, and they said, "Oh, you don't look like a bomb thrower."
Yeah, I think it was like kind of like a cat. Like it's been a while since he told me this story, but I think it was kind of like one of those casual, like, "Oh, you don't look like a bomb thrower," like one of those type deals.
Right.
But
well, I mean, there was a lot of street action in the 1960s, and Some since then. It happens frequently enough that sort of keeps the reputation going. And after the Rodney King verdict, there was a march that came from Oakland into Berkeley, and there was a lot of damage done. Um, Occupy, there was um, marches that came from Oakland, and two things happened. One is the Berkeley police completely overreacted and mishandled it, and another was that there was a group of anarchists that started breaking windows. So it happens, rarely, but enough that it sort of feeds that narrative. But once a narrative is created, it's there. But yeah, the bomb thrower, the tie dye,
All the different stereotypes.
Right.
Yeah, the Berkeley gets.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's interesting though, because a lot of what you have in your book really showcases the quirkiness.
Yes, and it's not a bomb. It's not a bomb throwing quirkiness,
Yeah.
but it's a it's we are not in
It's the
Kansas.
culture.
Yeah, it's culture.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're not in Kansas. There's something that you can. If you tried this project in Albany or El Cerrito, lovely small cities right next to Berkeley, you won't see what you see in Berkeley. Oakland, yes. Oakland, there's a lot, but I've thought about doing Oakland, but there's too many miles to walk in Oakland.
Yeah.
Berkeley is 100 or 200 miles. I can walk that, but Oakland's in the thousands. But yeah, it is. It's. I I don't know if people ridicule what we have. I mean, but it's there, and you don't see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a house down on Matthew Street in the Flats near San Pablo Park, so Southwest Berkeley, and it was designed by an architect named Eugenes Way, and it's called the Fish House, but it is
It's in your book?
yeah, it's in well, there's the giant orange.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow, yeah. So that's on page something 66. Yeah. Um, the fish house is in reality is a tardigrade, which is a segmented marine animal, and it was designed by an architect named Eugene Sway. His his parents were moving from Minnesota and were really worried about earthquakes, and so he went to the toughest little animal that exists in the world, the tardigrade, and um, used the architecture of this little micro animal.
I've seen this before.
Yeah, yeah.
Check that out.
There are no right angles within the house. It is based on it's biodesign. It's based on the architecture of the tardigrade, the little sea bear, and would withstand earthquake, flood, pest, and fire because it was a tough little animal. It's a tough house. And you're not going to find that many other places.
It's incredible. I'm looking at it on your website right now.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to link up the orange house. I also just pulled up the orange house, and that's amazing. It looks like a giant juicing bar.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they served juice, and they squeezed orange juice and shaved ice.
But this fish house is amazing. I'm looking at the interior architecture.
Yeah, it's absolutely
And this
amazing.
is Sam, check this out. The inside looks like the living room.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, do you know the exterior material of that building?
I don't. If you went to Eugene Sway's website, you could read more than you want to know about it, but it will not. It will not burn.
Wow.
It will not burn.
Right. It is designed to resist fire, flood, pest, and earthquake. And it fascinates me. His parents left mainland China in 1947 when as Mao took power, so that they fled communism, and lived in Minnesota for 40 years. He was an engineer, very conservative, culturally conservative people. They moved to Berkeley to be near their son and into this house. And I said, well, what was it like for them to walk in? And and he said, well, they walked in and they said, well, there's the kitchen. Where's the bathroom? As if everybody lived in a house with no right angles.
Yeah.
I mean, the appliances are the only right angles in the whole house. Kind of hard to hang pictures because the walls are all curved. But and there's a
I think with that kind of architecture, you don't need to hang pictures.
No, you don't. You don't. You get some color with things, and there's, as I write about in the Berkeley side post on this, which is longer than my own post, that has the photos you were looking at of the interior. There's a group of 4 or 5 young people who are doing a startup with applications for museum tours or historical site tours on your smartphone. The perfect people to be in there. And I think that they are getting what Eugenes Way hoped for, which is inspiration from the architecture. This is so different and so creative. That's the way our business is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also a good idea, a virtual tour, virtual city tours.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have those. And then also they'll have, if you go to Machu Picchu, they'll have an app that has GPS, knows exactly where you are and what you're looking at, and then has as little or much information as you want about exactly what you're seeing right there. It is a
technology.
It's great technology. In museums, sometimes they're the walking tours with the headphones. It'll tell you 30 seconds about the painting you're looking at. With this, you can spend 3 hours reading about that painting. It's with technology.
Yeah.
So they're living in the house and working on this app. That's great.
Yeah.
Actually, they are working on an app for Telegraph Avenue as you walk the 5 blocks south from campus on Telegraph Avenue. What happened here? So.
Yeah, and all the history behind it.
Yeah.
So where's the Orange House here?
That's 722 Spruce Street.
Okay.
Up Spruce, near the top of Spruce Street. Bruce Dodd is the owner, and it's not what I actually.
Is this in his backyard or?
Well, it's sort of his front yard.
Okay.
It's down a long driveway, and I'd walked or run by it 50 or 100 times and never looked down the driveway and seen it. And then when I was walking for Quirky Berkeley, paying a little bit more attention, I looked down the driveway. I said, "Holy mackerel, what is that?" And because it harkens back to a different America, the old weird America, using the Greil Marcus term, I just love it.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing.
And his grandchildren pretend that it is a spaceship. So.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
It looks like something out of Space Odyssey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as does the fish house, sort of.
Okay, and you have here Leslie Safarik's Ceramic Joy.
Yes, yeah, those are for sale.
You can buy these.
Well, they're actually not for sale. They are at Omega Salvage on San Pablo, and they are 8 or 10 feet tall. Wonderful, and they were once owned by Danielle Steele, the writer, at her Marin County home. And there you're scrolling down to her pool house and where they used to be. And when she shut that house down, Urban Ore got a hold of them. But they are really something.
Wow. The detail.
She's a great artist. She lives in Fruitvale.
Yeah, the detail she puts into it.
Yes.
Yeah, these are amazing. So we'll go ahead and link up your entire blog and all these separate pages here in the podcast, because people need to see this. This is amazing.
Marc Olivier, and he has a house on Calusa Street. I have a whole post about him. He walks the beach between, the shore between Berkeley and Richmond every weekend with a friend and a couple poodles, picking up beach trash.
Okay.
And then makes sculpture with it. Rope, wiffle balls, and he's got probably 20 or 30 of his sculptures in front of his house on Calusa, very near Monterey. And what you're looking at is a shoe that seems to be made with rope that he found there. A big shoe, a lady's
Now,
shoe.
how big is the shoe? Because it looks like
It's about 8 feet long.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, actually, it looks like you can. If you put a pillow in the back of the shoe, you could totally sleep in it. Now,
Yeah.
do you look for things that are solely exterior, or do you also find quirkiness that's interior?
The absolute rule of Quirky Berkeley is it has to be visible from the sidewalk, path, or alley. And so that would not allow inside the house. And I break that rule all the time. I refer to the rules committee. The rules committee, c'est moi. And, I try not to do too much of that because I want it to be things that people can see when they're walking. And the joy of walking. I lived in Berkeley for 30 years before I started walking, and I think I knew the city. And you walk and you just see things that you never knew were there. And
Yeah. Yeah, I think your book is living proof of that.
yeah, and I see new things every day. Things change. I mean, there's a house on Chaucer Street just above Telegraph, and it had a wraparound mural that had fairies and little people in California. A beautiful mural painted by an artist named Stefan, and it's gone, painted over. Things come, things go.
Right here, the murals of Stefan.
Yeah.
And so he painted these on the side of buildings?
Yes, and the one that you're looking at there was the first street mural in Berkeley in the early '70s. It was the Dutch boy paint on Milvia and University.
25 feet by 90 wide.
Yeah, big one.
Now that's some serious talent.
Yeah,
I've seen
he's
some
great.
like to be able to paint a mural of that size anywhere, side of a building, and to visually know how it's going to look is amazing.
Yeah, he's very, very good.
Okay, and I'm seeing some of his other murals here. And now, is this at his home or
Which one you're looking at?
looks like
No,
he has?
that's you are looking at the one on Chaucer.
Okay.
You can see the elves and the goblins
Mhm.
and the California natives. The woman who owns the house is named Riley. She does creek restoration, urban creek restoration, and knows all about California natives. And so she took that with a study of little people, and that what you are looking at has now been painted over. So there are new things and old things go. Art is not eternal.
And so, what's one of the most amazing interior things you've seen?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, I can think of a few offhand. There's a couple who live at on Scenic and Cedar, and they have a few quirky things outside their house. She is a virologist who's been fighting AIDS for 30 years, and he is an astrophysicist who works on uh, search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
SETI?
Yeah, SETI. He's a total brain, and the inside of their house is just spectacular. I blog about it with odd sculpture. Um, Arlene Mayerson, who has that Leslie Safarik um, sculpture that you were looking at, and the shoe. The inside of her house is a stunning collection of folk art. Um, Art from Arts Automotive on San Pablo has one of the world's greatest collections of miniature souvenir buildings, like little Empire State Buildings. Thousands of them. Those are inside. Um, there are many. Marcia Donahue has one of the the great garden of Berkeley. She lives on Wheeler Street, and inside her house, she has an incredible collection of fabrics and sculpture. So, you know, I, I, couldn't follow the rule. I tried, but I just couldn't. I mean, there's so many beautiful things. And sometimes on those, I will not publish the address.
Yeah.
But
So I think you need to create an app for your website here because you're literally an encyclopedia of Berkeley. I mean, like you know all the ins and outs. I mean, it's amazing. So for the listeners out there, you have to check out the blog. You have to buy the book. I mean, this is some incredible things. I've lived here in the Bay Area all my life, and literally just a few miles away from Berkeley. And I mean,
yeah.
this just blows my mind away.
Well, if I really was going to do this right, I walk the street often with a friend, and it's really fun because you're outside, you're walking, you're with a friend, you're being nosy, you're writing things down, making. But if you were really doing it right, you'd walk one side of the street, one direction, and then back, and then the other side of the street, one direction and back, because you, from different angles, you see different things, and yeah, there should be an app. There really should be.
So for someone who wants to do that, I'm thinking I might do that this weekend.
Mhm.
And where would be the ideal place to start?
Well, I have one of the groupings of my of the up there on the top are blogs, albums. You click on that, and then you go down, and you'll see there are walks. And so there, I have created walks, and these are photographs and have slight notes about where to go. So
Okay,
this
so
is probably what I would do. So the Northeast Berkeley Walk there. You see that one?
yeah, do it yourself guide.
That starts at Live Oak Park in Berkeley, and you go and you see the hog farm peace sign. You see a great topiary giraffe. You see little squids painted on the sidewalk. You see a Buddhist shrine on Arch Street that's not far from your grandparents. Arch just north of Eunice. You see the giant orange. You see Buldon Sika's giant ceramic freaks. That's one. The Southeast Berkeley, you start at Emerson and Adeline, and there's a number of great things there. I did one that I called the Ashby Corridor. It also starts at Adeline and Emerson. So I think there are at least 3 walks here, and then there's Telegraph Avenue, 5 blocks of Telegraph Avenue with some history.
So
They're at least
yeah, I'm looking here, and there's a Berkeley Path Wanderers.
yes, the Berkeley Path Wanderers maintain and lead walks along the approximately 140, 150 paths that exist mostly in the Berkeley Hills. And they also lead, I've led 4 or 5 walks for them on the streets. They're just walkers, and they love Berkeley. And as you can see from that photo,
There's a
that
lot
was the
of
first
people
one I
here.
did. Yeah. I mean, typically there's between 100 and 150 people come on those walks. And those are really fun because
Wow.
when you get that many people, they know things I don't know. We'll be walking by and someone would say, "Have you ever seen that mountain lion coming out from the 3rd floor on Parker?" "No, I haven't." "Well, it's 1 block away. Let's go." So we take the whole group there.
Oh, nice.
Or people know the history, or they'll say, "Have you ever seen?"
How
It's
often?
interactive.
How often is that walk?
Do a couple a year. There's not one scheduled right now. Probably do one in February or March, and they're advertised at the Berkeley Path Wanderers, and the Berkeley Path Wanderers have a great map for sale of all the paths of Berkeley.
Okay. So some great starting points there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for all the information coming on to the podcast, and we'll link up your book.
Thanks. One way that I've described this blog and this post and the book is a love letter to Berkeley. I have loved my time in Berkeley, and I love this city, and I love my dear old Berkeley, and I'm sad to see some of the changes happening, but I'm going to celebrate what we have been. And I also, probably every 10th post is I do something about history in a very accessible, popular culture way about things in Berkeley. I just did one about the Print Mint, which was the first poster store in the United States, opened on Telegraph Avenue in '65.
The first poster store.
Yeah, the first place you go for posters. And they became the distributor for, at first it was, here's a poster of James Dean or Charlie Chaplin or W.C. Fields or Lenny Bruce, and then came the stuff from the Avalon and the Fillmore, and they were the distributor of those, and Underground Comics. Great 65 to 85, owned by a couple, Alice and Don Schenker. So I did a lot about that, and just reminding people how we got to where we are.
Yeah. The history and culture.
Yeah,
goes back to it all.
It's not just all American Apparel and Gap. There's more to life than that.
Yeah. Well, now I know what I'm going to be doing this weekend.
All right, good. All right,
Yeah.
well, thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to Tom Dalzell for joining us today. Go out and buy his book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble online. It will literally have you walking the paths of Berkeley, searching for his discoveries. Thank you to my producer, Sam Lubman. Thank you for listening to this podcast. And please like, comment, and share. And don't forget to subscribe. I really, really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.